That's about learning. We should have to do some English. Kind of see it. We're going to start Lamed Hey. Lamed Base. Lamed Hey B. Let's do this. Okay. Where is it? We're the first two dots on the top. About 8 lines down. This Shel Truma Tmeya Psula. It's Truma Tmeya. Truma Tmeya means that this esrog was supposed to be given to the Kayan, and it became Tamei. It was the Truma. You can't eat it. So then you take it as an esrog. It's possible less beheter achila, because the esrog needs to be able to be eaten. It says al kachtam lachem. You have to be able to get that sort of benefit. So Truma tahir leyitel. If it's Truma but it's tahar, that means the Kayan can yes eat it. Not a Yisrael, but a Kohen can eat Truma. So l'chatchila you're not supposed to take it. But if you take it, then you're yaitz. You're not supposed to use a Truma esrog. But if you used it, it's good. You're not supposed to, but it works. So pligi bar Rabami bar Rabasi, there's a machlekes here. What's the pshat? Why you're not supposed to take it? What should be the problem? I mean, I know you're not a Kohen, but nevertheless, if a Kohen can eat it, that should be good enough. So Chad Amar Nipnei Shemachshira, the Chad Amar Nipnei Shemachsida. So these two Amiroim, the Talmidim of Rabbi Yechanan, Rabami and Rabasi, had a big bezdin, a very important bezdin. But they disagreed about what's the reason why Truma Tahira L'Chatchila you shouldn't use as an esrog. First opinion is Nipnei Shemachshira. Apparently, they would keep the lulav and esrog in water, or at least the lulav in water. Then when you would take the esrog, your wet hand would touch the esrog. The rule is that for food, for produce to become tamei, it needs to first become susceptible to tamei. And how does it become susceptible? When it becomes wet. So if your hands are wet and you touch the esrog, so you're going to make the esrog susceptible to tumah. So the first one is Nipnei Shemachshira. You make it susceptible to become impure. This is 35b. Lamed Hey on the base. Make it susceptible to becoming tamei. Now, the truth is that becoming susceptible to becoming tamei is not really making a tamei. There's still another step there. But apparently, this is something that we don't want to happen. If it would now touch tumah, it would become immediately tamei once you make it wet. So we don't want you to use an esrog that's truma for the mitzvah. You can eat it, but don't use it for the mitzvah. The other opinion says because you're ruining it. How are you ruining it? Because when you keep touching the esrog, we hold it for halal, whatever. But like the Rebbe's esrog, if he's gone with Tayyim a lot, turn like color, become discolored from all the handling of it. The mafsida, you ruin it. Gets ruined. My binaya, what's the difference between these two opinions? You have two reasons why not to use an esrog that's truma. It says, very interesting nafkamina. Let's say someone said that my esrog is truma. It's going to be given to the Kohen. But not my entire esrog. Only the inside of the esrog. The very outer peel is not truma. So if the issue is machshira, that you make it susceptible to tuma, well, yeah. Truma and tuma don't have anything in common. The fact is that if you make the esrog wet, even if the outside of the esrog is not truma, then the whole esrog is susceptible to tumah. So if there's a problem of making it susceptible to tumah, so here goes. You made it susceptible to tumah. But according to the opinion, it says that you're ruining truma. You're handling, keep touching the truma, and it's going to get ruined. So over here, the outside of the esrog wasn't truma. Yeah. It was a very interesting nafkamina. A lot of times the Gemara has questions that like theoretical. So we say, what's the practical difference? What's the practical difference? They would say in the yeshivas that if someone had a question, you would say, well, what's the difference? So they would answer, well, if I married a woman on condition that this is the child, so then am I married or not? They made everything into a nafkamina. Everything has a practical difference. Okay. Here, the practical difference is if you made the esrog truma, but you didn't make the outer layer of the esrog truma. Okay. Not all kshera, but if you did take the esrog truma, you're yaitz the mitzvah. According to the opinion that said that what was our issue before with truma tmeya, it was impure. You couldn't eat it. Well, here you can eat it. According to the opinion that says that it had no value, or yes, but din mammon. Over here, it does have a value. Yeah. Cohen can give it to a woman to marry her. It can even be sold. Truma could be sold. I mean, it doesn't have the same. You don't sell it to the Cohen. You give it to the Cohen. But if for some reason it ends up back in your hands, or the Cohen wants to sell it, the Cohenim amongst themselves could sell it. It has a less of a market because it would only go to another Cohen. It would be cheaper, but it has a trade value. Michelle Demai spoke about if you purchase, you just get produce from an amaretz, but you're not sure if the tithes were taken. So we said over here that there's machlekes beisil and beishamai. If you can use an esrog of demai for the mitzvah. Demai is the produce that was acquired from amaretz, from someone who's not trusted if he took the ma'aser. It'd be tied. So basically, it's possibly untied. Produce is possible. Yeah. The video cameras were on, but they didn't have sound. They saw he was taking stuff out. They didn't know if he says, this is my sir, or if he says, this is for my wife. Okay. My time of the Beis Hillel. The God's eyes, right? My time of the Beis Hillel. What's the reason for Beis Hillel that he says that it's acceptable to use a meiser, not a meiser, a demai esrog? Can't eat it. You know that the esrog needs to be edible. It says, "Kiven di boy mafkalu l'nichse v'habayani b'chazalei hashtanami lachem karinin be." Beis Hillel considers this yours. Why? Even though right now I can't eat it, but theoretically I could, and that's enough. Because if I would want, I could make ownerless all of my property, everything that I own. And there's a special rule that a poor person is allowed to eat the mark. If I make everything that I own ownerless, then I'd be allowed to eat it. Even though right now I didn't, but since theoretically there's potential, so that makes it edible. Right? So Hashtanami Lachem can be the Tanan as it was taught in the Mishnah. Machilim Asaniyim Demai Asanya Demai. Asanya is some sort of group of soldiers that the community was responsible to support that town where the soldiers were. So you were allowed to support them with Demai. So Beis Shammai, what about Beis Shammai? If there's potential for it to be edible, so good. Ani lo yachol Demai. Beis Shammai holds that a poor person is not allowed to eat demai. Ditanan, that word ain. Usually we don't read it. Achilam asaniyim is demai v'sasani demai. From Rav Huna Tana Beis Shammai amram ein machilam asaniyim v'sasani demai. Beis Hillel machilam asaniyim demai v'sasani demai. It's basic machlekes. Can a poor person and this group of soldiers eat demai? Beis Hillel says yes. If that's the case, then there's potential for this to be edible. So that's why you could be to the mitzvah. According to Beis Shammai, there is no potential because even if you're mafker you make ownerless all your possessions, you still can't eat it. So this is not a valid esrog. Shal Meiser Sheni Shabir Shalayim. Let's say you have an esrog of Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni is the second type. You separate it. The professor called it tourist money. When you go to Yerushalayim, you can spend it over there on food. So what about an esrog for the mitzvah? Can you use the esrog that's from Meiser Sheni for the mitzvah, not for eating? According to the opinion that says, what was the halacha actually? What did the Mishnah say? Meiser Sheni lo yital. You shouldn't take it. But if you did, then it's okay. That's the halacha. According to the opinion that said about truma, that why shouldn't you use truma? Because you're going to make it wet, and then you're going to make it susceptible to tumah. So here also, you're going to make it susceptible to tumah. According to the opinion that says you're going to ruin it by handling it, all the fingerprints on it. You're going to spoil the outer part. So, harim mafsida. So that's why the chatchila you shouldn't use it. But if you did use it, then you're yaitza. Vim not al kshera. And if you did use it, you're yaitza. We're talking about the esrog of Meiser Sheni of the second time, which is the tourist money. According to the opinion that says that you shouldn't use truma tameya because actually it goes back before truma tameya. This goes back to arla. Why shouldn't you use arla? It had no heter achila. It wasn't edible. So what about this? So this is edible. The man of Neshem beheter achila, the briakol. This is edible. Everyone holds Meiser Sheni is edible. But according to the opinion before that said that why can't you use arla because it doesn't have a monetary value, it doesn't have a trade value because it was aser b'hana. So what about Meiser Sheni in Yerushalayim? Well, that's a machlokes. Amani Rabbanani, you're right. It's only going to fit with one opinion. It's not going to fit with the opinion of Reb Meir. Reb Meir's opinion was that Meiser Sheni was not tradable. Did not have any trade value. You couldn't use it to marry a woman. You could only eat it. It would really belong to Hashem. You were just allowed to eat it. Also chazazes. If it grew these blotches on the esrog. So the Mishnah said, if it's on the small part of the esrog, then it's kosher. If it's on the large part of the esrog, and the majority of the esrog, then it's pasul. Amar Rav Chizda says, Rabbeinu Agadol Amrei. This was said, the following was said by Rabbeinu Agadol, which is Rav. Rav Chizda is a student of Rav. Now, he wasn't a direct student of Rav. He was a student of Rav's students, but apparently he had heard some things from Rav. So he would quote those things and he would emphasize that this he heard from Rav. Hamakim Yabazri, the Eberster should help him, should protect him. Leishanu Ella b'makim echad. Abel b'shnayim shleishim makim is kosher. When do we say that if there's a chazazes, these blotches, these spots on the esrog that it's pasul? That's only if it's all in one place. But if it's spread out, yeah, there was something that when we said Hareini Kaparas Mishkabai, that's the year that he died. Is that are they commenting on this now? No. That we learned at the beginning when someone said, Rish Lakish said Hareini Kaparas Rebchia Bana. That was in the first part. So now this is just like Hashem should protect him. I think it sounds like he's still around, that Rab is still alive. Sounds like that. Okay. However, if it's in 2 or 3 places, then the esrog is kosher. It's spread out. Amalei Rabba, or maybe it's Rabba. Last time they edited it to Rabba. Rabba said, "Oh, they take out the lay." That's what they did. No, they didn't edit it. They say Rabba says, Other Rabba, what's going on? That makes it like a menummer, is like speckled. Makes it speckled. That should be pasul. If it's all in one place, then fine. Pasul. Rather, you have to read it differently. Al miyutei kasher, if these blotches, these spots are on the esrog, on the minority of the esrog, then it's kasher. And then Rav Chisda says, this is the following statement said by Rav. When is it kasher if it's on the minority of the esrog? That's only if it's in one place. But if it's in 2 or 3 places, it becomes like speckle, and then it's going to be puzzle. So, what is it, 2 or 3? It's you have black dots on the esrog. So 1 dot is kasher. The 2nd dot depends who you ask. And the 3rd dot is already a problem. But it depends where on the esrog. If it's on the top, then even a drop is possible. The top of the esrog is called the chaitam, the upper part of the esrog. As the esrog inclines towards the tip, towards the pitta. Yeah, over there the halachas become much more strict. Okay. Nitla pitmasai. The pittam was removed. It sounds like the easiest part of the Gemara. The pittam is removed. It's for sure possible. The problem is, what's the pittam? The whole discussion here in Taisus. Tana Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar taught Nitla B'chnasai. It's actually referring to the B'chnasai. What's B'chnasai? That's also another big discussion here. Yeah, there's a bunch of opinions, but basically, let's look at it simply. The pittam has 2 parts to it. It has the top part, which is called the shishaka, the flower, because it gets a little bit wider on the top, a little like a mushroom. Yeah. Then there's the pittam, which is the actual stem that attaches that mushroom to the flesh of the esrog. Then on the bottom of the esrog, you have the uketz. Uketz is the stem that's where it's attached to the tree. But that stem also has a base to it, and that base goes inside. Notice if you crack off that stem, not only are you cracking off the stem, but you'll end up cracking off the base of it, and it's going to actually make an indent inside leave an indent into the esrog. So we're going to see soon. What is that? Yeah, we'll see soon. In English? Yeah, what does everyone else call it? They call it a citron. Yeah, like the car. Yeah. Yeah, they have a tradition that there were several brothers that left Spain that sold the string. That left Spain in expulsion, and they sold the string. And that's how they have the name. It's their tradition. Very good. So on that picture, so we're talking about, this is the chaitam. So according to Rashi, the chaitam is everything going up. According to the Ran, it's the top. According to the Rosh, and according to the Ran, and according to the Rambam, it's different parts of the pittam. No, according to Rashi, it's all the way around. According to the Rosh, it's from that incline all the way up. Yeah. Anyway, they have all of their comments. This becomes very complex. Over here, just from the Gemara, it seems simple, but because no one knows what every part of the esrog is talking about, it becomes complicated. Okay, Nikla. It compares this buchna. It's like the call it what? How do they translate the buchna? A mortar, not a mortar, a pestle. Pestle is the thing that's used to crush. The nikla. If the esrog was peeled, it means there's a thin layer, not the whole peel, but there's a thin outer layer that could be come off almost like a glaze, like the shiny part. You could take that off, it loses its shine. Nikla, Amar Rava. Rava says, Hi esrega de iglid, kahina sumka kshera. This esrog that's peeled like a red date, like when the date's dried, there is a thin outer peel to it. If you want to get your hands dirty, you can peel that off. So it's kosher. If the esrog is peeled, it's kosher. What are you telling me? It's kosher. The Mishnah says it's puzzle. The Mishnah says like kasha. It depends. If you peeled the whole thing, then it's going to have one halacha. If you peeled part of it, it's going to have a different halacha. Which halacha goes with which? Different opinions. Yeah. So simply put, if it's entirely peeled, I would assume the simple shot would be that it's puzzle. But if it's only a little bit peeled and it still has some left, then it's going to be kosher. Rashi doesn't learn like that. Rashi learns if it's entirely peeled, then it's kosher. Missing all of the skin, it's kosher. But if it's peeled a little bit, then it's puzzle because it's considered like speckle. That's how Rashi learned. No, I think it means you peeled it. I think so. Yeah. Okay. Nistak nikab. Let's say it split. The esrog split, or it had a hole. Tani ula bar chinina or bar chanina. Ula bar chinina. Which is it? So, taught nikav mafulish b'mashu. If it's a nekav mafulish, that means that it goes all the way through. What does it mean all the way through? From side to side? I think it said that means it goes through the whole skin to the center. Entirely through, from side to side. So it comes out the other end. Yeah, there's another shot. So if it goes entirely through, then even if the hole is very small, but if the hole doesn't go entirely through, then if the hole is the size of an isser, then it would be a problem. The size of an isser is the size of a coin. Yeah. So even if it's not missing anything. Yeah. Kastira milatacha. Something on top becomes the coin on the bottom. So, Boy Rava has a question. Nolder be'esrik simani treifa mahal. Let's say if you view an esrik the way you view an animal, and an animal that has a treifa, that's the coin. That's a coin. An animal that's a treifa means, according to one opinion, that it's not going to live for more than 12 months. Now, if the esrog would have a blemish, that would be considered a treifa on an animal that's down the lung or something. So, Mahu, what's the din with this esrog? The Gemara says, what is Rava asking? Which detail is he asking? Niklaf, if he's talking about, there's halacha that if the whole animal, the skin of the entire person is peeled, so then it won't regenerate. But if there's a little bit of skin left, then it will regenerate. So what's he talking about? Niklaf tanina, that we had in the Mishnah. It says niklaf, we learned that it's puzzle. Yeah, it doesn't match perfectly. Because the way Rashi learned is that if it's miktsasa, then it was puzzle. If it was kula, then it's kosher. According to the Hilchos Treifus, it's the other way around. If it's entirely peeled, the skin is all, there's no skin left on the animal. So then it's treifa. But if there's a little bit of skin left, then it was considered kosher. So it doesn't fit perfectly. But the point is the same, that Rava is asking a question. Why is he asking a question? We have a Mishnah that says the halacha. Nistak, if it's split, which that was the halacha by the trachea. that if it has a split on it, that was a problem. Depends which way. If it was split this like this or like that, one way was a problem. Yeah, over there we learned that when it would stretch, it would close, it would tighten, it would slit down. But as long as the rings of the trachea, what are they called? Trachea ring. So as long as it's left on the top and on the bottom. Okay. Nikiv, if there's a hole, Tanina, that we also learned in the Mishnah. We know what's the halacha. Nikiv over here by the treifa would be Nikiv Krum Shalmaya. If the meninges were punctured, if there was a hole, that would be a treifa. So we know what's the halacha by a Nikiv in an esrog as well. Depends if it goes through and through. All of them. The Gemara says, "Kikmi Ula was really asking a question based on a statement that Ula said, Amar Rabbi Yechon in the name of Rabbi Yechon. If there's a lung, that everything inside the lung, all the material of the lung, the bronchi, and everything else, whatever else is there, all the tissue, dissolved. And you could pour it out. It's just dissolved, and you poured it out like a jug, like a pitcher of water. You were able to empty everything out. It was just left just with like a balloon, So it says kshera. V'amar Rava. Rava says v'huda kaima simpanai. Rava says that's only if the big bronchia tubes are still there. Halai kaima simpanai. But if those also dissolve, so then it's a treifa. So the Gemara says hachamai. What about us by the esrog? Let's say if the esrog is like a water balloon. There's nothing there. There's no hard substance. It's just it's the outer part of the esrog is there, but inside it's all soft. It's all mush. Yeah, it happens to the fruit if you don't eat them on time. They get soft on the inside, and then no one wants them. So here, what about this esrog? Hachamai. Dilma hasamud leishal be'avira hadabari. Over there, why was it kosher? If the symphony were still there, that's because, it's inside the animal. So it won't it's protected by the animal wall. Hadabaria will reheal. But here it's exposed to the air. It's not an esrog inside something else. It's just an esrog sitting there on your counter. It's exposed to the air. It's going to for sure rot. And it's going to rot away. Maybe we say that there's no difference. That was Rava's question. Do we say that an esrog is different than a treifa if it inside becomes like water? Tashema. So come and listen. Esrog tafuach seruach kava shalak kushi lavan menumar pasal. An esrog that's tafuach and seruach. Tafuach means swollen, and seruach means rotten. Kavaship was pickled in vinegar or mustard. Rashi says. Shalak means that it was boiled. Yeah. But here we would say you left it in the car. But I think it means in water. Kushi, we're going to discuss soon, that the black esrog. Wow. Lavan, yeah. Yeah, I think it doesn't mean that it's rotting black. I think it means that it just grew black. It's fresh, but it's fine. There's nothing else wrong with it. It just came out black. It shrinks. Right. That was the old esrog, the yavish or a yoshin. Yeah. So here, or menumar, or if it's speckled, spots all over it. That's all that's possible. Esrog kekader, possible. An esrog that's like a ball, that's perfectly round, that's also possible. And the Yeshem Mafatim, also a twin esrog. Sometimes you have, in the cherries, they have they're attached. So here you have an an esrog that's attached by one part, two esrogim that are attached. Yeah, there's a picture. Siamese. So some say that that's possible. Esrog habayser, if it's very, very small, unripe. So Rabbi Akiva paisel v'cham machshirim. The Chum say that it's kosher. Rabbi Akiva says it's possible. Godly b'tfus. Let's say you grew the esrog in a mold, not mold as in mold, in a mold as in a shape, a form. You grew it in a form. Rashi actually uses that word. You look in the Rashi. Rashi says forma. You grew it in a form. So what's going to be the din over there? Basod kimin beri acheres. If you made it look like something else. Yeah. They grow it in a mold? No, I never saw. Uh-huh. And then what is the benefit of that? Oh, and they can pack them better. Yeah, they do it for, oh my gosh. Wow. Put a frame in it. What people do today, not to make a shade, but what you do today is they have the styrofoam mesh. And when the fruit is small, they put on this little styrofoam. As the fruit grows, sometimes fruit that's sold in the store in a single, so the mesh spreads out, so the animals don't eat it. It's not a mold; it's just a protection. But they put it on when it's young, and then it spreads out and it grows with that around it, like the clothing in the Midwest. Right. And now we figured out how they did it in a styrofoam mesh. So, okay. That's going to be puzzle if it looks like something else. Katani mias, whatever the case is. Nevertheless, we've learned. Tafuach sarua. If it's swollen or if it's rotten. We're going back to Rava's question. If it spills like a drug, my love, is this not tafuach mi bachutz? Outside is swollen, surach mi b'fnim, but inside it's rotten. So, and we have an answer that it's puzzle. Where says like, both of them are talking about it's separate cases. Both talking about on the outside. But like kasha, there's no problem. This is talking about where it's swollen. And here, but it wasn't rotten. And there it's rotting, but it's not swollen. But no one's talking about that the inside of it is rotten away and the outside is still intact. No one's talking about that. So therefore, Rava still has a good question. Amar Mar, Esrog Kushi puzzle. A black esrog is puzzle. Kushi means Ethiopia. But Tanya Kushi kasha. But we have a brisa that says that a Kushi is kasha, a black esrog. So the Gemara says, Doimel Kushi puzzle. Tanya Kushi kasha, Doimel Kushi puzzle. Similar to a Kushi, it's puzzle, but a regular Kushi is kasha. And our Mishnah said that a Kushi is puzzle is referring to similar to a Kushi. That's when it's puzzle. What's going on over here? Kushi, similar to Kushi. So, turns out that in Ethiopia, the esrogim would grow black. And over there, that was the normal color of the esrog. So over there, that's an actual Kushi esrog. And it's actually kosher. I don't know. If it's similar to a kushi, that means that it's not really from Ethiopia, but it grew black. So that's possible because that's like that's like a. Yeah, that's a problem. It's not the way.
Look at Rashi. Because I know you always want to say the words.
Yeah, I don't know what that word is. Counterfeit. Oh, wow. I was looking at it this morning, trying to figure out. Counterfeit. Rashi says counterfeit. That's amazing. He spells it out. I read that word. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out this one. I was reading it. Kunterpat. I didn't realize the English. Okay, very interesting. Rava says like kasha. Rava says there's no problem. Halan v'halahu. It depends for who. Now there's different ways of learning halan v'halahu. But basically, it depends if you're used to that. So in Eretz Yisrael, which was more distant than from Ethiopia, they never saw those, so they considered that fossil. In Babel, where it was common for ones from Ethiopia to come, so it was more, they're more used to it, and that was kosher. I don't know. It would be possible unless you were in Ethiopia and you got it from and if it grew in Ethiopia and you're in Ethiopia, then it would be kosher. But if you're outside of Ethiopia, then automatically it's going to be a problem. Unless you're right outside Ethiopia where it's frequent, and then according to Rava, whatever. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Let's do the next piece. Esrog Boiser. Boiser is when it's this little tiny esrog. It's just starting to grow. Rabbi Kiva Pais Malcham Machshir. Rabbi Kiva says that's possible. Some say it's kosher. Amar Rabba. Rabba says Rabbi Akiva v'Rab Shimon Amrit Avrecha. Usually this is done by Abaya. Abaya is usually the one that says that he puts a bunch of Tanoim together and he says that they're all saying the same thing. Here, Rabba did it. And he says that Rabbi Akiva, who says that Boisar is puzzle, and Rab Shimon, Rab Shimon Bayachai, they say the same thing. Rabbi Akiva Hadamra. Rabbi Akiva, well, we know, he says that an esrog of Boisar, that means a small size, a Boisar esrog is puzzle. Rab Shimon Mahi, but what's Rab Shimon? Well, that's an honor. Rab Shimon Paiter esregim b'kaitan. Rab Shimon says that these little tiny esregim, you don't have to take meiser from. They're not considered a fruit. Amalei Abaya, you see, Rab Shimon doesn't consider them a fruit yet. Rabbi Akiva says you can't use it as an esrog. They hold the same opinion. Rab Shimon is a student of Rabbi Akiva. Amalei Abaya, Abaya says to Rabba, Dilmalaihi, how do you know that they're really saying the same thing? Atkan like Rabbi Akiva hacha debinan hadavaleka. Rabbi Akiva holds that it's a fruit. He just says that it's not beautiful. But Rabbi Akiva probably holds that you have to take meiser. Aval hasam karabanans really. Over there, he says that you have to take meiser. It's considered a fruit. It's only a din in Hilchas Esrog. Inami, or maybe the other way. Atkan like Rabbi Shimon hasam al diksivasa tasis called tvazarecha kederch shebnei adam meitzil nisriya. Over there, when do you have to take meiser? That's only if it's fully ripe. Where at that point, you would be able to get the seeds from it. Right? It needs to reach maturity for the seeds to be useful. Aval hacha, but so over there, Reb Shimon holds that you don't have to take meiser because he learns that it needs to be fully ripe. Aval hacha karabanan tzvirlei. But over here, he holds that it's perfectly fine for an esrog, and he holds that it's kosher. In other words, how do you know that Reb Shimon and Rabbi Akiva that are talking about two different halachas? How do you know they agree with each other? Gemara says v'sulay midi. That means case closed. Yeah. I mean, we're done. We have nothing more to say. The comments to Rava are so strong that we just leave it. Okay. Godlai bitfus. If you grew the esrog in a mold, in a form, and it turned into another creature. All right. It grew like another, like it looks like something else. Right. Yeah. Amar Rava. Rava says, Leishanu al Kimin Bar Yacheres, Avot Priyasi Kosher. Rava says That's only because it looks like something else. But if it looks like itself, then it would be kosher. The Gemara says pshita. That's obvious. That's just a quote from the Mishnah. That's what it was taught. It says it only if it looks like something else. The Gemara says like dafi. This seems to be the pshat, that what Rava is telling me is that it's not a beria acheres. However, it's an exaggerated esrog. An esrog has like folds, not folds, but bumps. You exaggerated those bumps with so you made it into an exaggerated esrog. So Rava is saying that it's still kosher. Okay, Itmar. Esrog shenakvu achbarim. An esrog that holes were made in it by mice. Amar Rav, ein zahadar. Rav says that this is not beautiful. So far, I understand what's going on. Eini, is it really so? But Rab Chanina metabel ba v'nafik ba. Here's where it gets a little confusing. Rabbi Chanina would dip his esrog and he would eat it, and then he would be yaitzer. Gemara says Rabbi Chanina kasha masnisin. 1 second, there's a problem because the Mishnah says that you can't do that, and the Mishnah says that the esrog needs to be whole. It can't be chaser, can't be missing a piece. It's like a bad Mitzrayim story. No, this is on Sukkot. There's a that's what the Gemara is asking. It's possible. The question is, how was he allowed to eat it anyway? If it's hooked to the mitzvah, he shouldn't be designated for the mitzvah. You're not supposed to smell it or eat it or whatever. And here he goes in. Well, he had a different esrog for every day, and so once it was yaitza, then he would be allowed to eat it. There's all types of answers for that. But the main question is, how was he allowed to take a bite out of it and still be yaitza the mitzvah? Yeah, there's a problem. You're supposed to avoid that smelling. Everyone does. It's not so simple because it's been designated for the mitzvah. Yeah. Yeah, the myrtle, I think, is more of a problem. Because the myrtle is designated for the mitzvah, and all the myrtle is smells. You're not supposed to smell that, I think. But the esrog, because it's also edible, and that's the main part of it. So the fact that you're getting a smell from it may be less of an issue. And I have to look that up. But yeah, I think it's designated. You have to look that up. Okay, so the problem is Rabbi Chanina kasha masnisin. How was he allowed to take a bite out of it and then use it? Well, how was he allowed to take a bite? We can answer, but how was he allowed to use it? Let's say it's Yom Tov Sheni. It's not the first day. So Hadar, well, there's a problem over here also because Hadar is supposed to go on the whole Yom Tov. It's still a problem. Maybe the issue was, Rashi says that the issue was lakachdem. It needs to be lakichatam. It needs to be whole, but that's only lakachdem lachem b'yamarisha. That's only on the first day. El Rav kasha, but according to Rav, how did Rab Chanina take a bite and then use it? Rav holds that if the mice made holes in it, that it's a problem. Amalach Rav, so Rav would say, Shani achbarim demisi. Mice are much worse. It's disgusting. But if a person took a bite, it's not so bad. Ikadamrida, those that say Amar Rav said the opposite. Zehada, Rav says that it is good. The Rab Chanina metabel ba v'nafik ba, because Rab Chanina would actually take a bite. Rab Chanina kasha masnisin. What about the Mishnah? It says like kasha kam b'yom tov rishon kam b'yom tov sheni, and it wasn't the first day of Yom Tov, so that's why he was allowed to do that. Yeah, a very surprising Gemara. Okay, esrog cotton, a small esrog. Amar Rafram Bar Papa says, "Machlekes kan kach machlekes ba'avanim merkavzalis." What? How small is the smallest esrog? Well, a walnut. There's a machlekes. A walnut or the size of an egg. Those are two opinions. The same thing is when it comes to stones on Shabbos. Usually stones are muktzah, but in the olden days they would clean themselves with certain types of stones. They would use What was it? No, I'm not referring to rubbing it on your skin. I'm referring to cleaning yourself after the bathroom. You would use stones that weren't sharp, stones that you wouldn't get hurt from. They were just round stones.
I give you some.
So how big are those stones? So the exact same machlokes. The Tanya b'Shabbos Gimel Avanim Merkazolos Mutal Achnas basically is you're allowed to take these 3 stones into the bathroom. Kama shiur, how big are they? But Meyarai Mekagas, Rabbi Mekabeya. But one of these Mishnayos was not as well known. So what we're doing here is we're saying that if you want to remember, it's exactly the same halacha as it is in the other Mishnah. In the large esrog, it's enough to be able to carry 2 in one hand. But the other opinion was that 2 hands could carry 1. We're not stone now. Now we're talking about the small size of the esrog was compared to the stones for the bathroom. The large esrog, we just said that it needs to be able to fit 2 esrogim into one hand. Or the other opinion was that 2 hands could carry 1 esrog. Tanya, started in the Braysim Rabbi Yasi Ma'aseh Rabbi Akiva, the story with Rabbi Akiva Shabbalah Beis HaKnesses, came to Shul. The esrog al Kseifa was carrying the esrog on his back. It was so big. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says to Rabbi Yasi Misham Raya, that's your proof. Afei Mamalei in Zahada. They told Rabbi Akiva that this is not beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it over here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.